Well, welcome back to the channel. It's been a while. I took 2 weeks off on vacation and spent it with my daughter and kids. But we are back to Bill of Rights, Amendment 25. There you go. Take a pause. Read it yourself. Okay. Amendment 25, ratified in 1967. Section 1. Case of the removal of the President from the office or his death or resignation, the Vice President shall become President. Section 2. Whenever there is a vacancy in the office of the Vice President, the President shall nominate a Vice President who shall take office upon confirmation by a majority vote by both the House of Congress. Section 3. Whenever the President transmits to the President pro tempore of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives his written declaration that he is unable to discharge the powers and duties of the office and until he transmits to them a written declaration to the contrary, such powers and duties shall be discharged by the Vice President as acting President. Section 4. Whenever the Vice President or majority of either the principal offices of the Executive Department or such other bodies of Congress may by law provide transmit to the Congress pro tempore of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives, then written declaration that the President is unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office, the Vice President shall immediately assume the powers and duties of the office as acting President. Thereafter, when the President transmits to the President pro tempore of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives his written declaration that no inability exists, he shall resume the powers and duties of his office unless the Vice President and the majority of either the principal offices of the Executive Department or the such other bodies as Congress may by law provide transmit within 4 days to the President pro tempore of the Senate and Speaker of the House of Representatives their written declaration that the President is unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office. Thereupon, Congress shall decide the issue, assembling within 48 hours of that purpose. If not in session, if the Congress within 21 days after receipt of the letter written declaration, or if the Congress is not in session within 21 days after Congress is required to assemble, determined by 2/3 vote of both houses that the President is unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office, the Vice President shall continue to discharge the same as acting President. Otherwise, the President shall resume the powers and duties of his office. There you go, so you can pause and read it yourself. The author says the 25th Amendment resolves an ambiguity of Article 2, Section 1, Clause 6 of the Constitution, where assuming the powers and duties of the President does a Vice President do so as acting President or as acting President, one entitles to remain in office for the remainder of the 4 years. Historically, Vice Presidents had become actual presidents upon the death of their predecessor, but that was nowhere stated in the Constitution. Section 1 states that the Vice President becomes an actual president if the sitting president either dies or resigns, while Section 3 stipulates that if the President declares to Congress that he is unable to discharge the powers and duties of the office, the Vice President serves only as the acting President. Before President Ronald Reagan underwent elective surgery in 1985, he officially passed the office to Vice President George W. Bush, who served as acting president for less than 8 hours. These provisions are straightforward as in Section 2, which stimulates how a new vice president is to be selected if the office becomes open. Section 4 is more complicated. What happens if the president is unfit to serve yet cannot declare that? In 1881, President James Garner, shot by an assassin, was in and out of coma for 79 days before dying. During that time, Vice President Chester A. Arthur did not command the office of the presidency. If a similar event happened now, the Vice President would support from either the cabinet or some other body of Congress can become the acting president until the president either dies or becomes unable to resume the duties. Imagine, however, that if a president becomes incapacitated due to not realizing it or refusing to acknowledge it, Biden. In 1987, during Reagan's second term, he ceased reading briefs and spent much of his time watching movies, which concerned some of his aides. His chief of staff, Baker, set up a test situation luncheon where he and other Reagan's associates were scrutinized the president's behavior for signs of competency. Reagan performed well and was deemed fit for office. What if he had not passed the test? Vice President Bush could have convened the cabinet, submitted a declaration to Congress, and immediately assumed the duties of the presidency, although only he as acting president. But if Reagan believed he was fully capable, he couldn't simply declare as much and resume the duties. At this point, to dislodge the president, the burden of proof would be on the vice president and either the cabinet or such another body designated by Congress in such a contested removal. As it is called, the final arbiter is Congress, and the bar is high. 2/3 supermajority as with an impeachment trial. Their framers hadn't accounted for incapacitated presidents. Had they done so, they probably would not have granted the vice president a lead role in the procedure that could elevate him to presidency. But those who drafted the 25th Amendment did not want the process to be publicized and determined that any move to dislodge a president for incapacitation had to be emergent from within his own party. This amendment was already under discussion when John F. Kennedy was assassinated in 1963. The tragic events of the scene, sense of urgency, what would have happened if Kennedy had survived, but lay in coma like President Garfield. Ratification was swift and almost unanimous. 47 states in less than 2 years. Okay, that was the 25th Amendment. Talks about transfer of power from president to the vice president. And it was ratified in 1967. So if you have any questions, concerns, or comments, please leave them down below like normal, and we'll address them when we can. Till next time, take care, and God bless.